Okay, picture this. Two people work the exact same number of hours. They've got similar responsibilities, similar deadlines, and they even bring home pretty much the exact same salary. Yet at the end of the week, one of them finishes up tired, but, deeply satisfied. They're totally ready to enjoy their weekend. But the other person, completely, utterly drained, just running on fumes with absolutely nothing left in the tank. Welcome to this explainer on what we're calling the exhaustion paradox. Today we are going to uncover why your actual workload is really only half the story and what the hidden half is doing to your brain. Whenever we talk about workplace stress, right, the most obvious question is almost always, well, how much work do you have? We just automatically assume that burnout comes directly from volume, from simply having way too much to do. And look, while excessive workload absolutely contributes to stress, for sure, it just doesn't explain the whole picture. I want you to think about your own day for a second. When you log off and feel completely depleted, is it strictly because of the sheer mountain of work you actually got done, or is there something else quietly sapping your energy?
So the crucial point is perfectly captured when we compare two totally different experiences of an identical 8-hour workday. Imagine employee A. They have really demanding work, but they get to choose how to structure their time. They set their own priorities, and they decide exactly when to hunker down and concentrate. Now contrast that with employee B. Technically, they have the exact same amount of work, but throughout the day, their manager suddenly changes a priority, an unexpected meeting pops up out of nowhere, and they're just constantly interrupted by messages. Employee B isn't actually doing more work, but by 5 p.m., they are so much more exhausted.
The hidden variable that we so rarely talk about isn't volume at all. It's predictability and control. Work often becomes entirely exhausting, not because you have too many tasks on your plate, but because you have absolutely zero control over how you manage them. Your entire day just belongs to incoming requests, shifting priorities, and other people's decisions. It is a profoundly frustrating feeling, right? And listen, if you've been feeling it, you are definitely not alone. Now, what's really fascinating is how occupational health research actually backs this up. High demands are not inherently harmful to us. In fact, many people deliberately choose highly demanding, incredibly stressful work, and they absolutely thrive in it. Think about it. Athletes push their bodies to the absolute limit. Entrepreneurs solve maddeningly difficult problems. Surgeons are literally operating under life or death pressure. A massive challenge can actually be incredibly engaging and fulfilling. It isn't the difficulty of the task that breaks us down. The core of the issue comes down to this subtle but massive psychological distinction. Telling yourself, this is difficult and I can influence how I respond, puts you in a state of empowering challenge. But thinking, this is difficult, unpredictable, and I have almost no control over what happens next, that is a fast-track recipe for burnout. That second scenario introduces a heavy sense of helplessness and this persistent, nagging uncertainty. And from a neurological standpoint, uncertainty requires a massive amount of your attention and energy. Let's just slow down for a second and look at the psychology behind this. Your brain is essentially a giant prediction machine. It's constantly trying to figure out what's going to happen next so it can allocate your attention efficiently. When your working environment is reasonably predictable, you can easily build a mental model of your day. You intuitively know what matters, what can wait, and what requires your deep concentration. Your brain kind of relaxes into a rhythm because it knows the rules of engagement. It's exactly like a musician knowing the sheet music. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when that mental model is shattered. You sit down at 9 a.m. to do some deep work. 15 minutes later, you hear that dreaded ping, an urgent message. You deal with it, and by 9:45 a.m., you're trying to reorganize your thoughts. Then, just as you get back on track at 10 a.m., boom, an urgent request completely changes your priority for the entire day. Every single time this happens, your mental model breaks. You aren't just losing minutes on the clock, you are paying a massive cognitive cost to constantly context switch and rebuild your focus completely from scratch.
But you know what the actual worst drain on your energy is? It's what happens before the interruption even arrives. It's the cost of anticipation. Because your environment is unpredictable, your attention becomes entirely reactive. You literally hesitate to start difficult tasks because your inner monologue is constantly worrying, what if somebody messages me right now? Or, well, I probably won't have enough uninterrupted time anyway. This persistent state of high alert means you can spend 8 full hours sitting at your desk without getting anywhere near 8 hours of usable, high-quality cognitive performance.
Okay, let's dive into this concept because it is absolutely the most crucial vocabulary term in our explainer today. We call it the autonomy gap. This is the distance between the heavy responsibility you're asked to carry and the actual, practical control you have over how you manage that responsibility. And here's the secret. When that gap is wide, your exhaustion absolutely skyrockets.
Think about these scenarios. Imagine being fully accountable for delivering a major project, but having absolutely zero say in the deadlines. Or being responsible for deep, complex analytical work, but being expected to reply to team messages the second they come in. If you find yourself trapped in any of these situations, I really want to reassure you, this is not a personal failure on your part. You aren't bad at time management. You're just trapped in a fundamental design problem within your workplace. The responsibility remains high, the control remains low, and that gap creates immense psychological strain.
Now, we do need to clear something up immediately. Whenever we talk about wanting autonomy, management often gets a little nervous, right? They think autonomy means everyone just doing whatever they want, whenever they want. But autonomy does not equal chaos. Healthy workplaces absolutely still need goals, they need deadlines, accountability, and coordination.
What we are actually aiming for here is structured autonomy. This means the organization clearly defines the required outcomes, the what that needs to get done, but the employee has meaningful discretion over how it gets done. Structure combined with agency is vastly more sustainable than completely chaotic freedom or, on the flip side, excessively rigid micromanagement. It allows managers to define the priorities but gives employees the permission to navigate them intelligently.
So, how do we actually fix this? Well, here are 5 highly practical, actionable steps to increase your agency at work and close that autonomy gap, starting literally today. Let's run through them.
Step 1 is to ask for priority clarity. This is crucial. When someone, especially a manager, comes to you and drops a brand new task onto your plate, you must not silently add it to the pile and just try to work faster. Instead, use this exact script. Just ask them, where does this sit relative to my existing priorities? If this new task is suddenly priority number 1, ask what should be moved down the list to make room. This simple question works absolute magic. It forces the person asking to realize they're adding load, and it turns workload management into a shared, transparent decision rather than a solo burden you just have to silently absorb.
Step 2. Create response windows. Listen, unless you are literally an emergency dispatcher, not every single message needs an immediate answer. If your role allows it, start checking your non-urgent communications at defined intervals, say once an hour, or maybe 3 times a day. You've got to stop living in a state of continuous reactive attention. Train your environment to expect thoughtful responses from you rather than instant ones.
Step 3 is to fiercely protect one focus block a day. Seriously, even just 45 to 60 uninterrupted minutes can completely restore your sense of agency. Put it on your shared calendar so everyone sees you're busy. Close those 50 unnecessary browser tabs. Silence every single notification. Give your brain the absolute gift of working on one cognitively demanding task without that underlying, exhausting anxiety of anticipation.
Step 4 is clarifying your decision rights. Ambiguous authority is a massive energy drain. When you don't actually know what you're allowed to decide on your own, you spend precious cognitive load second-guessing yourself, writing overly cautious emails, and waiting around for approvals that you might not even need in the first place. You can clear this up instantly by asking your leadership this one golden question. What can I decide independently, and what requires approval? Once you know the boundaries of your sandbox, you can move quickly and confidently inside it. It gives you clear permission to act on your own terms and completely eliminates the cognitive friction of uncertainty.
And finally, step 5, distinguish responsibility from control. This is perhaps the most revealing exercise you can do to understand your own exhaustion, and honestly, it's a fantastic tool for leaders to use when assessing their teams. Grab a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. On the left side, list everything you are officially responsible for. On the right side, list what you actually have the power to influence. If you map this out and find a massive mismatch, like if you are repeatedly held accountable for outcomes where you have absolutely zero influence over the process, the budget, or the timeline, it is time for a serious conversation with management.
So, the next time work feels unusually crushing and you are just exhausted to your bones, I want you to stop and rethink. Do not immediately conclude, I can't handle this, or I guess I'm just not cut out for this job. Stop blaming yourself. Instead, zoom out and investigate the structure of your environment. Is the workload itself actually impossible? Or is the environment just constantly interrupting your ability to manage it?
Top performance isn't about eliminating all stress and pressure. Let's be real, modern work is going to be demanding. True high performance comes from a simple equation, balancing those high demands with the right resources. And the most vital, most overlooked resource of all is control. Autonomy doesn't remove your responsibility. It makes your responsibility manageable.
I want to leave you with this final, crucial thought to take into your week. Look closely at your tasks, your meetings, and your unread messages, and ask yourself, where in my working day have I accepted responsibility without enough control? The answer to that question might just explain way more about your exhaustion than the sheer number of hours you work. Thanks for joining this explainer. Start reclaiming your agency, and I'll see you next time.